The scent of wilting roses and stale lace was supposed to be the fragrance of my future, but on that crisp autumn morning, it felt like the suffocating shroud of a life I never truly wanted, a truth that struck me with the force of a tidal wave as I stood before the ornate mirror, my mother's pearls a chilling weight against my throat and the elaborate wedding gown an inescapable cage. My heart, usually a steady drumbeat of quiet resignation, hammered against my ribs with a frantic primal rhythm, urging escape, a wild unbidden call that resonated deep within the ancient stones of Silver Creek itself, a town named for the shimmering waterway that cut through its wild, whispering woods, a place I had always found both beautiful and unsettling, a canvas of deep greens and shadowed grays that held secrets older than memory. The polished wood floors of my childhood home groaned beneath the weight of expectations, each creak a silent protest against the path laid out for me, a path meticulously planned, perfectly respectable, and utterly devoid of the fierce, yearning spirit I had only just begun to recognize within myself. Outside, a gentle mist clung to the venerable oaks, their gnarled branches reaching like skeletal fingers towards a sky the color of forgotten dreams. A typical Silver Creek morning, one where the air tasted of damp earth and distant wood smoke, but today it felt different, imbued with an almost electric charge, as if the very atmosphere held its breath, awaiting a pivotal moment. I traced the delicate embroidery on the silk of my dress, my reflection a stranger, poised and fragile, yet beneath that veneer of bridal perfection, a storm brewed, a desperate need for freedom that pulsed with an almost supernatural intensity, a feeling that Silver Creek, with its deep, murmuring woods and its silent, watchful hills, was not merely a backdrop to my forced ceremony but an accomplice to my burgeoning defiance. My fiancé, Thomas, was a good man, steady and kind, a pillar of the community, and marrying him was the sensible, expected thing, the culmination of years of quiet courtship. But as the clock in the hall chimed the half-hour, its resonant tone vibrating through the very foundations of the house, a sudden inexplicable shiver traced a path down my spine, a feeling akin to a cold draft entering a warm room, a sense of something unseen brushing past, a whisper that wasn't quite a sound but a feeling of profound, ancient attention, a presence that made the hairs on my arms stand on end, not in fear, but in an odd, compelling curiosity, as if the very air had thickened with a secret, a soft, ethereal touch that felt both like a warning and an invitation, urging me to step away from the mirror, away from the pearls, away from the life that awaited me just beyond the threshold, to flee into the waiting, mysterious embrace of the Silver Creek woods. The whisper of silk against my skin was no longer a symbol of commitment but a memory of my desperate dash through the back gardens, past the startled gardener, and into the dense embrace of Silver Creek's ancient woods, the wedding dress snagging on briars, mud staining the pristine white, each tear a tiny victory for my newfound freedom. But as I ventured deeper, the familiar path dissolving into a labyrinth of towering pines and shadowed ravines, I began to notice subtle changes, shifts in the very fabric of reality around me. The air, already rich with the scent of pine and damp earth, now carried a distinct, almost metallic tang, a raw, wild aroma that made my senses hum with an unidentifiable energy, unlike anything I'd ever encountered in my sheltered life, an intoxicating blend of primal wilderness and something distinctly more. The shadows here were deeper, longer, seeming to stretch and writhe with a life of their own, and the sounds of the forest, the rustle of leaves, the distant cry of a hawk, were amplified, clearer, as if my hearing had sharpened overnight, picking up frequencies I'd previously been deaf to. It wasn't just the external world. Something within me felt altered too, a new awareness unfolding, a heightened intuition that guided my steps, pulling me away from the well-trodden paths towards the forgotten heart of the woods, a pathless journey that felt strangely fated. I felt a persistent, almost magnetic pull towards the Silver Creek, not the gentle, civilized part that flowed through town, but the wilder, hidden stretches, where the water ran faster, deeper, and shimmered with an otherworldly luminescence under the dappled sunlight. One afternoon, while perched on a moss-covered boulder, tracing patterns on the water with my fingertips, I caught a fleeting glimpse of something in my peripheral vision, a movement too swift, too fluid to be any ordinary forest creature, a flash of obsidian black and deep, shadowed gray that vanished among the trees before I could properly register it, leaving behind only a faint tremor in the air and the lingering impression of immense power, an unexplainable feeling of being watched, not with malice but with a profound, almost ancient curiosity. Later, during the silent, moon-drenched nights in the small, abandoned hunting cabin I'd stumbled upon, a perfect, forgotten haven. I would sometimes wake from a deep sleep, convinced I heard a low, resonant hum, a vibration that seemed to emanate from the very earth beneath me, a sound that wasn't terrifying but deeply soothing, almost protective, as if the wilderness itself had taken me under its wing. These fleeting encounters, these shifts in my perception, built a gentle tension within me, a sense of wonder mixing with a quiet confusion, hinting at a world beyond the veil of normalcy I'd always known, a world Silver Creek had been guarding all along. My ordinary life had crumbled, but in its place, something extraordinary was beginning to bloom, like a rare, nocturnal flower unfurling its petals in the heart of the forest, drawing me deeper into its silent, unfolding mystery. And as the moonlight filtered through the leaves, painting silver streaks across the cabin floor, I closed my eyes, not with fear, but with a burgeoning sense of anticipation, my heart a silent question mark, wondering what other secrets this enchanted forest held, what other unseen forces were at play in my newly untamed existence. The forest had become my sanctuary, the rough-hewn walls of the abandoned cabin my solace, but true solitude proved elusive, for the very air around me began to thicken with an unspoken presence, a subtle hum of energy that was both comforting and profoundly unsettling, a feeling that intensified on the third twilight after my escape, when he finally stepped out of the deepening shadows, materializing with an almost ethereal grace from behind a towering ancient cedar. He was not merely a man. His presence was a force of nature, a quiet magnetic current that seemed to draw all light and sound into his orbit, and as he stood there, observing me with an intense, unwavering gaze, the world around us seemed to hold its breath, the chittering of unseen creatures falling silent, the rustle of leaves ceasing their dance, leaving only the profound thrum of my own startled heart. His eyes were the most striking feature, the color of twilight skies just before the stars emerge, ancient and knowing, holding depths that hinted at centuries lived, stories untold, and a wisdom that transcended the human experience, and when they met mine, it felt less like a gaze and more like an acknowledgement, a deep, silent recognition that bypassed all superficiality and saw straight into the core of my being, unraveling threads of my past, present, and future in a single mesmerizing moment. He moved with an effortless fluidity, a primal elegance that spoke of strength honed by nature, his form lean and powerful beneath simple dark clothing, a stark contrast to the confining silk and lace I'd shed. Yet it wasn't his physical form that captivated me, but the sheer emotional resonance of his presence, a feeling of profound safety interwoven with an exhilarating, almost dangerous wildness. There was no need for words, not initially. His very existence in my secluded world was a dialogue, a silent symphony of understanding that spoke directly to the wild, untamed part of my soul that had finally dared to break free. The air around him shimmered with an almost imperceptible energy, a faint, clean scent of rain-washed earth and ancient forest, mixed with something indefinably unique, something both alluring and slightly terrifying, hinting at the true nature of his existence. He didn't intrude, he merely was a silent guardian in the periphery, his vigilance a warm, protective cloak that settled around me, easing the sharp edges of my fear and loneliness, replacing them with a burgeoning sense of wonder and a strange, powerful connection that felt predestined. Each time our paths crossed, whether by the creek, or as I gathered berries, or even when I simply sat by the cabin window, feeling the profound stillness of the woods, his presence was a quiet anchor, a steady point in my chaotic new world, a silent promise of something more, something deeper than the superficial connections I'd known. I found myself drawn to his quiet strength, to the unspoken answers that seemed to reside within his enigmatic gaze, to the profound peace that settled upon me in his proximity, a magnetic pull that felt utterly inescapable, a force that whispered to the very core of my being that this mysterious man, this silent sentinel of Silver Creek, was intricately woven into the tapestry of my fate, a connection forged not by choice, but by a destiny far older and more powerful than I could possibly comprehend, beckoning me into a world I was only just beginning to perceive, a world where he was clearly a fundamental, vital part. My world, once a carefully constructed edifice of societal expectations, had not merely shifted but had begun to dissolve entirely, reforming itself around the enigmatic presence of the man I now knew only as Reese, his name a soft, guttural whisper that resonated with the very essence of the forest, and the changes in my ordinary life were no longer subtle nudges but dramatic revelations, unfolding like the petals of a mysterious nocturnal bloom. The dreams, which had once been scattered fragments of my anxieties about the wedding, transformed into vivid, potent tapestries of an ancient past, visions that felt more like memories than mere nocturnal fantasies, showing me glimpses of wild, moonlit rituals, vast, untamed landscapes, and figures moving with an agility and power that defied human capability, their eyes glowing with an inner luminescence that mirrored the depths I had seen in Reese's. I would wake with the echoes of ancient chants in my ears, the scent of damp earth and wild magic clinging to my senses, a profound sense of having lived another life, another age, a life inextricably linked to the very ground beneath Silver Creek. Coincidences once dismissible as mere chance, now clustered together with an alarming precision, creating a sense of an unseen hand guiding my every step, a fallen tree that blocked a path I might have taken, only for me to discover a hidden spring along the detour, its waters exceptionally clear and invigorating, or the sudden appearance of rare, healing herbs just when I needed them most, their existence in the remote parts of the woods seeming almost miraculous. Reese was always subtly there, sometimes a fleeting shadow at the edge of my vision, sometimes a resonant hum in the quiet air. A quiet sentinel whose protective aura seemed to ward off unseen dangers, his presence a comforting certainty in the midst of my growing bewilderment. My emotional landscape, too, was undergoing a seismic shift. Surges of power, of acute sensitivity, would sometimes ripple through me, allowing me to perceive the emotions of the forest, the joy of a bird in flight, the sorrow of a wilting flower, the deep, slow pulse of the ancient trees, all woven into a grand, living symphony that I had been blind and deaf to before. One evening, as the moon, fat and luminous, spilled silver across the cabin floor, illuminating the crude maps I'd been sketching of the hidden trails and sacred groves Reese had subtly hinted at, a realization hit me with the force of a revelation. This was no accident, no mere escape. I had not simply run away from Silver Creek. I had been drawn to it, to him, by a force far older and more profound than any personal choice. My flight had been an awakening, a step onto a predetermined path, not a desperate scramble. The deep sense of belonging I now felt in these wild, untamed woods, a stark contrast to the oppressive formality of my past, was not merely a reaction to freedom but a recognition of a deeper truth. As I traced the ancient symbols etched into a smooth, creek-worn stone I had found near Reese's silent dwelling place, symbols that felt strangely familiar, echoing the patterns from my vivid dreams, I understood that my life, the one I had left behind, was a mere prologue, and the story that truly mattered, the one steeped in the deep magic of Silver Creek, was only just beginning to unfold, entwining my fate irrevocably with the silent, watchful guardian of this ancient land. The unspoken language between Reese and me deepened with each passing day, woven from shared silences, the brush of accidental touches that sent shivers of pure energy through me, and gazes that spoke volumes without a single word, fostering a connection that felt as ancient and elemental as the Silver Creek itself, roots intertwining deep beneath the earth. He would appear when I least expected it, a silent sentinel stepping from the deep shadows of the forest, bringing me wild berries or freshly caught fish, his actions always thoughtful, always protective, a gentle reinforcement of the profound safety I felt in his presence, a feeling I had never truly known before. Our conversations, though sparse, were always potent, filled with layers of meaning. His voice a low, resonant murmur that felt like music against the hum of the forest, speaking of the land, the changing seasons, and sometimes, in fleeting, almost poetic fragments, of things that stretched beyond the bounds of human understanding. I found myself trusting him implicitly, an instinctual primal trust that superseded all logic, a feeling that flowed effortlessly from the core of my being, dispelling any lingering apprehension about his mysterious nature. With him I felt seen, understood, cherished in a way that transcended physical attraction, reaching into the very depths of my soul. There was a quiet warmth that blossomed between us, a tender unfolding of affection and care, like moss growing soft and resilient over ancient stones, and I would often find myself watching him, captivated by the way sunlight dappled through the leaves to illuminate the planes of his face, the intensity of his gaze as he listened to the whispers of the wind, or the effortless power in his movements as he navigated the dense undergrowth. Yet, beneath this burgeoning warmth, a subtle confusion lingered, a persistent awareness of the chasm between our worlds, the unasked questions about his true identity and the source of his extraordinary connection to Silver Creek, questions that hovered like morning mist, beautiful yet obscuring. One evening as we sat by the fire, the flames casting dancing shadows on our faces. I shivered, not from cold, but from an almost overwhelming sense of his closeness, his vital presence, and as I turned to him, my gaze met his, a silent conversation passing between us, a shared breath in the vastness of the wilderness. He reached out, his callous thumb gently tracing the line of my jaw, his touch sending a jolt through me, a pure electric current that spoke of a bond far deeper than friendship, a connection that felt destined, eternal, and in that moment, the subtle confusion shifted, morphing into an emotional revelation, an undeniable truth that pulsed within my veins. I was falling deeply and irrevocably, for this man of the forest, this enigma who held the secrets of Silver Creek in his very being. Just as the thought settled, a low guttural growl, impossibly close, echoed through the trees, a sound of primal menace that vibrated through the earth itself, shattering the quiet intimacy of our moment. Reese's body stiffened instantly, his eyes, previously soft with unspoken emotion, hardening into brilliant, predatory gold, his protective grip tightening on my arm, his entire being transforming into a coiled spring of ancient power, and in that electrifying instant, with the snarl of a beast hanging heavy in the air, I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that the man who saved me wasn't entirely human, and the revelation was both terrifying and utterly, compellingly exhilarating, drawing me even deeper into the beautiful, dangerous truth of his world. The low guttural growl that had shattered the stillness of our shared twilight was more than just a sound. It was a tearing of the veil, a sudden brutal revelation that ripped away any lingering doubts, exposing the raw, untamed truth of Reese's existence, and in that shocking instant, as his eyes burned with an inner gold and his hand gripped mine with an unnerving strength, the secrets of Silver Creek unveiled themselves with a breathtaking, terrifying clarity. The air around us thickened, not with mist, but with an almost palpable tension, a shimmering energy that pulsed with ancient power, and as a hulking shadowed form, its eyes glinting malevolently in the dim light, lunged from the undergrowth, Reese moved with a speed that defied human comprehension, a blur of strength and instinct, placing himself squarely between me and the snarling beast, his form shifting, expanding, elongating with a sound of rending cloth and cracking bone. Transformation that was both horrific and majestic to behold. The man I knew, the quiet, protective sentinel of the forest, was gone, replaced by a magnificent creature of myth, a colossal wolf whose fur was the color of midnight, its muscles rippling beneath the sleek coat, its eyes burning with an intelligent, fierce light that was undeniably Reese's, a sentinel of primal strength, a guardian of the wild, and in that moment the impossible truth unfolded before my very eyes. He was a werewolf, one of the ancient protectors, a guardian bound to Silver Creek, and the beast that had attacked us was not a mere animal but another of his kind, a rogue, a threat to the delicate balance he painstakingly maintained. The fight was a whirlwind of raw power and primal fury, a silent ballet of predator against predator, each movement a testament to their strength and ferocity, and I watched, paralyzed by a mixture of terror and awe, the sheer brutality of it balanced by the profound beauty of Reese's unwavering defense, his determination to shield me from harm. When the rogue was finally driven back, its defeat echoing in a broken whine that faded into the depths of the forest, Reese slowly, painfully, returned to his human form, his transformation back a testament to the immense power he wielded, his gaze seeking mine immediately, filled with a raw vulnerability that tore at my heart. There was heartbreak in his eyes, a deep sorrow at having revealed his true nature, a burden he had clearly carried alone for so long, fearing rejection, fearing the chasm his reality would create between us. But there was also a glimmer of desperate hope, a silent plea for understanding. The beauty of the moment lay in his fierce loyalty, his absolute willingness to sacrifice his secret, his peace for my safety, and the suspense tightened its grip, for this revelation was not an end but a beginning, pulling me further into a world of hidden dangers and ancient pacts. He spoke then, his voice hoarse, ragged with the effort of his transformation, explaining his lineage, his sacred duty to protect the ancient forest and the magical ley lines that converged beneath Silver Creek, a duty that spanned generations, a legacy of shapeshifters bound to the land. The shocking moment was not merely seeing him change, but comprehending the depth of his world, the intricate web of ancient magic and responsibility that defined his existence, and realizing that my own inexplicable connection to Silver Creek, the heightened senses, the vivid dreams, the sense of destiny, were not coincidences but echoes, whispers of my own burgeoning, deeply buried supernatural heritage, An awakening spurred by his presence, irrevocably changing my perception of everything, of myself and of the man whose world was now undeniably, terrifyingly, and wonderfully becoming my own. The world around me, once defined by the predictable rhythms of small-town life, had been utterly upended, transforming into a volatile landscape of ancient magic and simmering conflict, pushing me to the precipice of choices I never imagined I'd face. Reese's revelation was a raw, open wound of truth, beautiful in its honesty, yet undeniably painful in its implications, casting a stark light on the impossibility of our love in the eyes of an ordinary world, a truth that resonated deeply with the unstable earth beneath our feet. The very air of Silver Creek hummed with a heightened tension now, no longer merely the quiet magic I'd sensed before, but an almost predatory awareness, as if the forest itself knew of the danger that pressed in from all sides. My old life embodied by persistent, increasingly frantic messages from my abandoned family, and the chillingly determined inquiries from Thomas's father, a powerful, unforgiving man, began to encroach upon my sanctuary, their calls for my return echoing like a death knell against the wild freedom I had found, threatening to drag me back into a reality I no longer recognized as my own. Simultaneously, Reese's world, with its unseen currents and ancient rivalries, revealed itself in fleeting glimpses, the furtive shadows of other shapeshifters, not all as benevolent as Reese, or the lingering scent of something deeply unsettling in the air, a scent he often identified with a grim set to his jaw, whispering of encroaching packs, of territorial disputes, of forgotten curses stirring in the dark. The tension between love and logic became a constant, aching knot in my chest. Logic demanded I return to my former life, to the safety and predictability of human society, to relinquish this wild, impossible dream, but love, a fierce elemental force that had taken root in my soul, screamed against it, binding me to Reese, to the untamed magic of Silver Creek, to the burgeoning, mysterious powers I now felt stirring within myself. Every rustle in the leaves, every distant howl, every unexpected silence in the forest was fraught with meaning, a potential threat, a silent warning, forcing me to learn quickly, to sharpen my senses, to rely on instincts I hadn't known I possessed. Our days were a delicate dance between moments of tender connection, stolen glances, and hushed conversations by the glowing embers of our fire, and periods of heightened alert, Reese teaching me the subtle signs of danger, how to move silently, how to listen to the whispers of the wind, preparing me for a fight I hadn't yet understood but felt inevitable. His fierce protectiveness was a balm to my fear, but also a constant reminder of the ever-present peril, the stark reality that our peace was fragile, our love a beacon in a storm. One frigid night, as the wind howled through the trees, carrying with it a faint, acrid smell I had never encountered, Reese suddenly pulled me close, his body tense, his gaze scanning the shadowed woods with an intensity that chilled me more than the cold. "They're here," he whispered, his voice a low, gravelly rumble, his hand tightening around mine, a grim resolve settling over his features, his transformation already beginning to shimmer beneath his skin. "The ones who hunt our kind, who seek to corrupt the land. They found us." The words hung in the air, heavy and dark, a stark announcement that our sanctuary was breached, our fragile world invaded, forcing upon us a decision that would either forge our bond into an unbreakable steel or shatter us irrevocably, propelling us into a conflict that threatened to consume us both. The invasion of our sanctuary by the hunters, dark figures seeking to exploit the magic of Silver Creek, tore open deeper emotional truths, not just about Reese, but about my own forgotten past and the ancient connection that bound us, revealing a destiny far grander and more perilous than I could have ever conceived. As we hid amidst the gnarled roots of an ancient oak, the scent of fear and something metallic, unnatural, hanging heavy in the crisp night air, Reese spoke, his voice a low, urgent murmur that wove a tapestry of history, explaining the plight of his kind. He was not just a werewolf, he was the alpha of the Moonshadow Pack, a lineage stretching back millennia, entrusted with guarding the heart of Silver Creek, a nexus of vital ley lines and primordial magic, a place coveted by those who sought power at any cost, those hunters, who were themselves touched by a darker, twisted form of magic. His backstory was one of immense burden, a life lived on the fringes, constantly vigilant, forever battling the encroaching darkness, a silent, selfless protector whose existence was a continuous sacrifice, and as he spoke, his gaze never leaving the shadowed forms moving through the trees, I saw the true weight of his responsibilities, the quiet agony of his solitude, and my heart ached with a tenderness so profound it felt like a physical ache. Then he turned to me, his golden eyes piercing through the fear that gripped me, and revealed a truth that shook the very foundations of my identity. "You, Eliza," he whispered. "You are not merely human. Your ancestors were the Wardens of the Veil, a line of powerful seers and natural mages, bound by an ancient pact to the Moonshadow Pack, to my ancestors. Your family's flight from Silver Creek generations ago was not an escape, but a desperate attempt to sever a bond they no longer understood, to hide the gifts they feared. But the blood remembers. The land remembers." His words echoed with the truth of my vivid dreams, the heightened senses, the strange pull to the forest, the inexplicable magic I felt stirring within me, a legacy I had unknowingly inherited. Discoveries tumbled through my mind like falling leaves, the odd birthmark on my wrist, a swirling pattern I'd always dismissed as a coincidence, now recognized as an ancient symbol of the Wardens, glowing faintly under my skin in the dim light. I recalled my grandmother's cryptic stories, dismissed as senility, of whispering trees and moon-kissed guardians, tales that now resonated with terrifying clarity. Our dialogue, though hushed, crackled with the energy of revelation, uncovering not just Reese's hidden past, but mine, weaving our individual destinies into an intricate, ancient tapestry. "We were meant to find each other," I murmured, my voice trembling with the weight of this profound understanding, the knowledge that our meeting was not chance but the culmination of centuries of prophecy, a destined reunion forged in the fires of necessity. Reese nodded, his gaze softening, a glimmer of profound affection replacing the hard vigilance. "Our bloodlines were always destined to intertwine, to protect this sacred land together. Your awakening was inevitable. Your power. It is needed now more than ever." In that moment, fear was eclipsed by a fierce sense of purpose, a burning resolve to embrace this legacy, this wild, extraordinary truth. But as he spoke, a sudden, blinding flash of light erupted from the deeper woods, followed by a sickening thud, and Reese gasped, his hand flying to his chest, a deep crimson blooming swiftly across his shirt. He stumbled, falling against me, his eyes wide with shock and pain, his strength visibly draining. "They found a way," he choked out, his voice barely a whisper, his gaze fixed on a small dark projectile embedded near his heart, a twist of dark iron and sinister magic, a weapon crafted to pierce our magic, to weaken us, to kill. The emotional turning point was swift, brutal, and absolute. Our discovery of a shared destiny was now inextricably linked to a direct, immediate threat, pulling me from nascent understanding into the desperate reality of battle. My latent powers now our only hope. The wound in Reese's chest, a poisoned barb of dark iron and malevolent magic, was a cruel testament to the hunter's relentless cunning, and it sent a cold dread spiraling through me, bringing with it a rising tension that stretched our love, tested our trust, and threatened to extinguish the burgeoning hope we had just found. His breath came in ragged gasps, his skin growing pale beneath the firelight, the golden light in his eyes flickering precariously, a stark contrast to the vibrant power I had witnessed moments before, and a desperate fear, sharp and immediate, pierced through my newfound courage, threatening to overwhelm me. The internal struggle was agonizing. My human instincts screamed for flight, for escape from this impossible, dangerous world, but the awakened spirit of the Warden, the powerful ancient lineage stirring within me, pulsed with a fierce protectiveness, a burning resolve to save him, to save the bond that now felt like the very essence of my soul. I knelt beside him, my hands trembling as I examined the dark weapon, its surface emanating a sickening coldness, the magic woven into it actively corrupting his life force, and the ancient wisdom that had been whispering in my dreams now surged forward, an instinctive understanding of the rare herbs needed, the specific incantations required, the precise energy to counteract such potent darkness. But time was a luxury we didn't have. The hunters, emboldened by their strike, were closing in, their low murmurs and the snapping of twigs growing closer, their scent a foul stain on the pure forest air, and the realization that I was utterly alone in this impossible task, with Reese fading beside me, was a bitter pill to swallow. Trust, once freely given, was now being forged in the crucible of absolute necessity. I had to believe in my nascent powers, in the guidance of my ancestors, and in the strength of our connection, even as doubt gnawed at the edges of my resolve. Reese, despite his agony, managed a weak smile, his hand reaching for mine, his eyes full of an unwavering belief that fueled my determination. "You can do this, Eliza," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "The magic, it flows through you. It always has." His trust in me, even in his darkest moment, became my anchor. A silent promise that I would fight for him, for us, for Silver Creek. Hope, fragile yet tenacious, flickered within me, refusing to be extinguished, burning brighter with each passing second, pushing me past the threshold of my fear, urging me to embrace the destiny that demanded my full power. As the hunters' voices grew louder, their forms beginning to emerge from the darkness, a primal grief, a profound sense of potential separation, washed over me, a heartbreak so deep it spurred me to action, knowing that if I failed, if I hesitated, I would lose him forever. I pulled my hand from his, resolved, my heart a battlefield of emotions, each beat a silent vow, and I knew that to save him, I had to confront not just the external danger, but the vast, terrifying landscape of my own awakening power, embracing the impossible task laid before me, all while the danger of the encroaching hunters threatened to tear our burgeoning love apart. The hunters burst into our clearing, their crude torches casting grotesque, dancing shadows that mocked the ancient sanctity of Silver Creek, their faces contorted with greed and malevolence, their leader, a gaunt, scarred man with eyes as cold and dead as winter ice, holding aloft a twisted, dark iron staff that pulsed with the same malevolent magic as the barb still lodged in Reese's chest. This was the dramatic confrontation, the moment everything had been building towards, a battle not just for our lives, but for the very soul of the land, and as Reese lay weakened beside me, his breath shallow, his form shimmering with a desperate effort to hold back his primal self, I knew the choices I made now would define not only my future but the fate of Silver Creek itself. "The wardens," the leader sneered, his voice raspy, echoing through the trees. "We thought your line was extinct, your magic forgotten. But the blood doesn't lie. Hand over the alpha, girl, and we might let you live to find another pathetic human to ruin." His words were a venomous lash, seeking to exploit my fear, to diminish my newfound strength, but they only ignited a fierce, unyielding protectiveness within me, a molten core of power I hadn't known I possessed. I rose, my hands instinctively reaching out, not in surrender but in defiance, the ancient symbols on my wrist now glowing with a soft ethereal light, mirroring the nascent magic that surged through my veins, a response to the raw, urgent call of Silver Creek and Reese's fading life force. "You will not have him," I stated, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands, a voice far stronger than the runaway bride they presumed me to be, a voice that carried the resonance of generations of wardens, echoing with the power of the land itself. The choices were stark: fight or surrender, embrace my destiny or lose everything. Surrender was not an option. My internal world roared with conflicting emotions. The terror of facing such darkness, the desperate love for Reese that fueled my courage, the overwhelming sense of responsibility for a world I had only just discovered. I closed my eyes for a fleeting second, drawing upon the ancient knowledge that swirled within me, visualizing the intricate ley lines beneath the earth, feeling the pulse of the ancient trees, calling upon the very essence of Silver Creek to aid me. When my eyes snapped open, they blazed with a light that matched the fierce golden glow Reese now struggled to maintain. A vivid, untamed power that startled even the hardened hunters. I launched into action, my movements guided by instinct and the whispers of my ancestors, weaving a shimmering barrier of protective energy around Reese, then channeling the raw magic of the land, sending roots erupting from the earth to ensnare the closest hunter, conjuring swirling currents of wind that snatched their torches, extinguishing their light, plunging the clearing into a chaotic dance of shadows and nascent magic. Each action was a sacrifice, drawing deeply from my own life force, pushing me to the brink of exhaustion, but I wouldn't falter. My love for Reese, an unbreakable bond forged in shared danger and ancient destiny, became the wellspring of my power, transforming me from a bewildered runaway into a formidable protector. As the leader, enraged, lunged at me, his dark staff raised, Reese, with a superhuman effort, let out a primal roar, his body beginning to shift, pushing against the poison that sought to claim him, a raw, powerful growl that stunned the hunters and gave me the precious moment I needed. I met the leader's strike head-on, my hands flaring with a brilliant, protective light, absorbing the impact, but the force of it sent a searing pain through me, and my vision blurred, the world tilting precariously. I knew then that this was not merely a physical confrontation. It was a battle of wills, a clash of ancient powers, and as the leader sneered, Sensing my momentary weakness, a grand emotional cliffhanger hung in the balance, threatening to swallow us whole yet also stirring within me a deeper, more profound strength I had yet to fully unleash, knowing that the ultimate act of sacrifice was still to come, and the fate of everything rested on my shoulders. The clearing exploded in a maelstrom of raw magic and primal fury, the emotional peak of our desperate struggle against the encroaching darkness, as Rhys, fueled by a desperate, agonizing surge of his own fading power, managed a partial transformation, his form becoming a terrifying hybrid of man and wolf, his roar echoing with the anguish of his wound but also the fierce, unyielding protectiveness of an alpha fighting for his mate and his territory. The leader of the hunters, his face contorted in a sneer of sadistic triumph, pressed his attack, his dark staff crackling with malevolent energy, its insidious magic tearing at the protective shield I had woven around Rhys, slowly eroding my energy, pushing me closer to the brink of collapse. This was the ultimate confrontation, a clash between the ancient pure magic of Silver Creek, channeled through me, and the twisted corrosive power wielded by those who sought to dominate it, and I knew with a chilling certainty that one of us would not walk away from this fight. My heart, a drumbeat of frantic hope and desperate love, pounded against my ribs, each beat a silent prayer, a defiant vow to protect Rhys, to protect this sacred land, and to fully embrace the warden I was destined to be. I closed my eyes, not in surrender, but in a profound act of connection, reaching deep within myself, past the fear, past the pain, to the very core of the ancient magic that flowed through my veins, calling upon the collective strength of my ancestors, the whispered wisdom of generations of wardens who had stood before me. I felt the earth hum beneath my feet, the ancient trees stretching their roots deeper, lending me their strength, their silent, powerful support, and when I opened my eyes they glowed with a fierce, unwavering light, no longer just my own, but the incandescent fire of Silver Creek itself. "You will not have him!" I screamed, my voice amplified by the raw power coursing through me, resonating with the very spirit of the forest, and I unleashed a torrent of pure, unadulterated magic, a shimmering wave of emerald green and silver light that surged from my outstretched hands, a direct conduit to the ley lines beneath us. The force of it struck the hunter leader with devastating impact, tearing through his dark magic, throwing him backward with a guttural cry, his staff clattering uselessly to the ground, its dark energy dissipating like smoke. His followers, witnessing the sheer, untamed power I wielded, scattered in terror, disappearing into the shadows, their malice momentarily broken. But the victory came at a profound cost. The immense outpouring of magic had drained me completely, leaving me feeling hollowed out, ethereal, as if I too might fade into the mist, and I sank to my knees beside Rhys, who was now fully unconscious, his breathing shallow, the barb still pulsing darkly in his chest, its poison continuing its relentless work. I reached for the weapon, my fingers burning as they touched the dark metal, but the ancient knowledge, the wisdom of my lineage, whispered a terrible truth. The only way to fully counteract the dark magic and save Rhys was a complete transfer of energy, a profound sacrifice that would intertwine our destinies not just spiritually, but physically. This was my transformation, my ultimate act of love, to channel the remaining magic within me, to infuse his fading life force with my own, to become irrevocably bound, forever changed, the pure essence of my being flowing into his, the ultimate sacrifice that would either save him or consume us both, sealing our fate in an unbreakable eternal bond, making us two halves of a single powerful whole, a decision that felt both terrifying and undeniably, profoundly right. The first rays of dawn, tentative fingers of gold and rose, pierced through the canopy of ancient trees, painting the clearing in hues of soft promise, as if to witness the resolution of our desperate struggle, the culmination of a journey that began with a runaway bride and ended with an unbreakable, eternal bond. I lay beside Rhys, my head resting against his shoulder, utterly drained, yet filled with a profound, quiet peace, the last vestiges of my conscious magic swirling within me, having completed the sacred act of transference, a sacrifice that had woven our very essences together. The dark iron barb, now cleansed of its malevolent magic, lay inert beside us, its threat utterly diffused, and the wound in Rhys's chest, though still a tender scar, was no longer a harbinger of death but a testament to our shared defiance, a mark of our intertwined destinies. He stirred then, a low groan rumbling in his chest, his eyes, when they finally opened, not the blazing gold of his transformed self, nor the worried gray of the human man, but a swirling, profound fusion, a new depth that spoke of his renewed strength, and of the powerful magical connection that now bound us, an almost palpable tether between our souls. He looked at me, a silent question in his gaze, and I simply smiled, a weak but genuine smile, reaching up to touch his cheek, my fingers tracing the familiar contours of his face, feeling the new vibrant pulse of life beneath his skin. "You're safe," I whispered, my voice hoarse but filled with a quiet triumph. "We're safe." He returned my smile, a slow, tender gesture that warmed me to my core, and in that moment, all the emotional threads of our tumultuous journey came full circle. The despair of my forced wedding, the exhilarating flight into the unknown, the fear of his true nature, the shock of my own awakening, the terror of his pain, and the ultimate transformative act of love that had saved us both. Our shared gaze held an entire universe of understanding, a love forged in the crucible of impossible circumstances, a bond that transcended mere romance, reaching into the ancient, mystical heart of Silver Creek itself. I was no longer merely Eliza, the runaway bride. I was Eliza, the warden, the protector, bound to Reese, the Alpha, two halves of an ancient prophecy, destined to guard the sacred land and its powerful magic, a destiny I now embraced with every fiber of my being. Our future, though undoubtedly filled with challenges and unseen dangers, was also painted with the vibrant hues of purpose, of belonging, of a profound and unconditional love that had found its roots in the wild, untamed heart of the forest. We rose slowly, leaning on each other, our steps steady, moving towards the edge of the clearing, where the first light of morning washed over the dewy leaves, illuminating a path I had once stumbled upon by accident, but now walked with newfound certainty. The air, crisp and clean, tasted of pine and possibility, a testament to the new beginning, the transformation we had both undergone. As we reached the crest of a small hill, hand in hand, the sun, a blazing orb of gold, fully emerged from behind the ancient mountains, casting its warmth over the sprawling, vibrant tapestry of Silver Creek below, its shimmering creek flowing like a silver ribbon through the heart of the valley. Reese turned to me, his hand tightening around mine, his eyes, now a perfect blend of ancient wisdom and tender love, mirroring the sunlight, and in that single, strong, memorable image, bathed in the golden light of a new day, standing together, two souls irrevocably intertwined, two protectors bound by destiny and love, facing the future as one, I knew I had not just found my purpose, but my forever home in the wild, beating heart of Silver Creek, with the man who wasn't entirely human but was entirely my world.